So good morning, everybody, and welcome to Yin Yoga. Let's take a comfortable seat. Taking a moment to pause, to allow and to welcome in this is the week of the winter solstice, where we might contemplate the darkness and the light. I'm holding a rose quartz in my hands right now. Quartz being very clearing crystals, and the rose representing this intention of the heart. So clearing the heart center, clearing emotions, clearing the residue, what I like to call the sticky residue. And just allow presence. Not presence like the kind we get under the tree, presence as in our present conscious awareness. And breathe into anything that's maybe feeling a little sticky. We could contemplate that being a little darkness. And knowing that there's always light, there's always expansion, there's always ease, sukha. You just have to tap in. And so whatever this practice holds for you, bring your hands together at your heart center. Holding that intention, maybe the intention of darkness and light. And breathing into it all as we welcome in and come and begin our practice. Take a nice deep breath. And then as you exhale, hands release, eyes can flutter open. And let's meet down on the mat. So we're going to come down lying on our backs. And we're going to start with a Shavasana, little mini Shavasana. Checking in with ourselves, what's present. So once we get down here, you have an opportunity just to allow the body to be still and quiet, noticing anything that you notice. Today, we're going to work a little bit with just unwinding internally. We can really get bound up on the internal part of the body rather than thinking about the big muscles outside of us. So let's bend the knees. Bring your feet as wide as the mat and take your arms away from you in a T-shaped position. Give yourself enough room to straighten your arms all the way. And then allow the knees to drift gently over to the left as your eyes drift over to the right. Turn your left palm down and your right palm up. Take a breath. And then inhale, come to center, eyes change sides, knees change sides, palms flip over. Pause and take a breath. And then moving back and forth, inhaling as you come to center, exhaling as you move to the other side. And as we move through this satya, the somatic movement pattern, can you notice you might be moving your knees, but you're actually rotating hip sockets, right? You're juicing up the internal hip sockets. You might be moving your hands, but you're actually massaging the shoulders in the sockets. You might be moving your head, but you're massaging the very top of your spine, cervical area that connects the head and the spine together. Typically, these three areas get really bound up in our body, causing a lot of tightness, or what I like to call sticky. And I don't know about you, but as I've gone through this the last maybe couple rounds, I've felt my back releasing. Click, 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 click. And I woke up this morning really tight. A lot going on, of course, in everybody's life this time of year. And then you might have your personal things going on. And so this practice and this internal journey, this moment of taking time for just you, is so healing. Bring yourself back up to center, allow the arms to come back down, the legs to come back down, and we take a second here to reassess. Did anything shift? Alrighty, bending the knees again. Let's cross the right ankle over the left. Now you may use a block under your left foot. You may use a wall. I'm going to just suggest that you bring the legs in and hold underneath maybe the left thigh or maybe the right shin, depending on how tight you are. So shoulders are down. You can relax your feet. You can relax the left leg if you are holding it up in the air. This is our first yin pose. We're working right in the hips right away. The biggest area that tends to get bound up. And so you find your place where you can hold. And you breathe. So either holding with your hands or making sure that your feet are supported somehow, maybe on a block on the floor, or maybe on a bolster, wall. So when I do this practice by myself, I use the wall a lot just because I have it right here. It's super easy. Because remember, yin is positive pressure against tissue. And so if you're trying to hold something and you're just struggling through it, that's not a positive pressure, that's a negative pressure. So try to think of it in a way that you want to create some tension, but you don't want to struggle through it. This is that sukha and dukkha idea that I talk about often. Sukha meaning with ease, dukkha meaning without ease, meaning suffering. And so we're crossing ankle over knee so that we can get into the hip. And I want you to see if you can soften a little bit so that we're not in the big muscles of the hip, that we're down inside. It's those little tiny muscles and connective tissue that can really give us a little bit of trouble. And allow the breath to be part of the expansion. Allow the breath to move the prana, the life force, the light. I find this time of year I tend to light more candles, put more lights up, put lights on my tree, those kinds of things. And I don't realize how much I miss it until I do it. And then I go, oh, wow, that really feels special. And I know it's because, the days have gotten shorter, the nights have gotten longer, we spend more time in darkness. And so when you put those lights on at night, it just feels better. And so there's that balance, right? Take a nice deep breath. And now I want you to keep your legs in this crossed position, but just release your foot to the floor. Hop your hips over to the right And take your twist, your legs over to the left. Can you land your right foot down on the floor? You might hold your ankle with your left hand. That's a maybe. Right hand can expand away from your body as you turn and look towards your right hand. So this is a nice twist that can get into that, again, that deeper hip socket. The right arm can be stretched out straight, or you could turn it into cactus arm. It depends on what kind of tension you're feeling this morning. I love these kinds of shapes because it brings in the upper body. We're not isolated to just the lower body. We're connected via fascia. And it reminds us, right? Like I can feel how wound up my right shoulder and armpit chest is because my right hip was kind of wound up. And I'll release it as we go. It will let go. And so breathing into the shape and the sensations. And I like to think of the tension as a positive tension, but you could also think about it as there's not a lot of space going on. There's not a lot of freedom. It's a little tight, it's a little dark, it's a little sticky. And so taking that breath and filling the space with your breath and prana from the inside out. Just softening into the shape. You might notice that you're holding a little bit. There's some, holding of the leg muscle or holding of the jaw. Take a nice deep breath. And then start to unwind yourself by coming back up with the legs, taking the leg down to the floor. Bring your hips back into the middle. And then see if you can lay your legs down and your arms down. Come back to that mini shavasana. And check out your right side in comparison to the left. And then as you feel ready, bending your knees, left ankle over right knee, and then allow the legs to move upward. So remember, you can hold your leg as I'm doing. You can put your foot up on a wall, your right foot, or you can put your foot on a block. Some people like to do that if they don't have a lot of range of motion. And you find your holding space where you're putting that positive pressure on purpose. Tension against tissues on purpose. And we find a place where we can pause. As we're holding, can you do shavasana in your mouth? Relax the tongue off the top of the roof of the mouth. Allow your teeth to be slightly open or relaxed apart. The minute you do that, if you had them together, your jaw is going to relax, softening through the throat, neck, and upper shoulders. And just reminding you that when the tension, as you put yourself here, starts to dissipate, you need to make it a little bit deeper. So you just give it a little bit of a closer hug to the body. Always keeping that positive pressure against the tissue so that we actually have a response. And we stay here enjoying this moment with our body and our community. allowing that deeper connection to yourself in this busy, busy time. And it doesn't take a much. I did a meditation this morning and I just can't even tell you how much better you feel after just 15 or 20 minutes. I can't hardly put words to it. It's just more relaxed or more conscious. Like the nitty gritty details of all the things don't even matter anymore. Take a nice deep breath. And letting your right foot land to the floor, but keep the cross of the left ankle. Pick your hips up and take them to the left, and then allow the crossed legs to come to the floor. See if you can hold your ankle with your right hand now. You don't have to do that, but it does give you a little anchoring. And then open the left shoulder, turn your eyes to the left, let your arm be open to the left. So finding that connection. And I'm always amazed. I don't know why I'm always amazed because I've been doing this forever. But when I did my right side, there was all this stickiness around my right chest, right armpit that I know was connected to my right hip, my right lower back. This left side, kind of nothing. So it's so amazing to me. And then we wonder why our back hurts, or we wonder why our hips or our shoulders hurt. We're so bound up. And it could have been from the way I slept last night. It could have been from the day I made Christmas cookies with my grandchildren pretty much all day. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but cleaning, cooking, fixing, standing, felt like a lot in my body. And so I find it interesting and curious around how we can get so easily bound up and then we don't realize what a simple thing we can do to unwind ourselves. This first shape that I've chosen can really get into lots of different areas all at once, which is why it's so lovely to do. It's kind of a big bang for your buck kind of deal. Make sure you've turned your head along with the rest of the action so you're getting that juice from the hip sockets, the shoulders, and the top of the neck. And take a nice deep breath. And then slowly starting to unwind yourself, bringing yourself up and back. Taking the legs down to the floor, bringing your hips back to the middle. And letting your legs go down and your arms go down. And take a moment in the center. And then from here, go ahead and bend your knees. Roll to a side, push yourself up away from the floor. Coming to a seated posture. Wouldn't be a yin class without butterfly pose. So if you have a tight back like I do today, I can tell already I'm going to need a blanket to sit on. Give yourself that freedom. Don't make everything so hard. And so bring your feet together, support underneath your legs, especially if you have any kind of knee issues. And then remember that you can use your blocks or your bolster. I'm going to use my bolster to sit up nice and tall. And I want you today to hold on to the shins And lean back a little bit, like you're gonna fall over backwards. Let your throat open. Find a way that you can hold here. Take a nice deep breath. And then from that length, come forward and start to tip yourself forward towards the bolster, towards your feet. So if you don't have any props, you can just leave your hands where they are. If you have props, put them on the props. I like to stretch my arms out over my bolster. You might choose to put your head in your hands. Very quieting when you do head in your hands. Just noticing the outer line of the body from the bottoms of the feet. It'll go to the inner line also. So inner line of the legs, outer line of the legs. Up through the buttocks and hips. Along the spine. And up around the top of the head. And so thinking about how yin can support us in times of busyness, of course, but this time of year brings up a lot for people. And we might slough it off as nothing, or we might slough it off as like, oh yeah, that's just what always is like, it's like for me. But I have personal experience around when you're triggered around a specific action or experience, how your body holds that trigger, that trauma, that experience. And then we think all we got is, my back hurts. I got to do something because my back hurts. And that's true. It could be your shoulder, it could be your neck, it could be your back, it could be anything. But I know from my own personal life that when I get triggered, my back goes wonky. And this kind of practice where we can become still, we can have a little deeper intention, a little connection and self-compassion around these experiences in our body, it can really help us to let go of the tension, let go of the bound up energy, blocked energy. And so if that's resonating for you and you know that you have this relationship of, we don't just get tight hips. We might go for a 5-mile walk and get sore the next day because we've done so much, but we don't just get tight hips from standing around or sitting around, or we just don't. So then you ask yourself, well, what else is going on? And breathe and again, connect and have some self-compassion for whatever it is. Because we all have stuff. It's called being human. We allow the last 30 seconds or so to really resonate and letting go in this shape. And then take a nice deep breath. And then slowly starting to sit up. Again, just for a moment, lean back with your hands. You can change the shape of your legs if you need to, and lean back and push your chest up. So you have an opposite experience in your spine. And then as you feel ready, I want you to bring your legs up. If you haven't done so already, stretch them all the way down, give them a little rub. And then bringing your feet back in, but come close to the body this time. So in traditional yoga, we call this cobbler's pose. Some people call it butterfly, but because I do yin, I don't call this one butterfly. Again, you want to have this experience of being able to move forward in your pelvis. You saw me put a blanket under my hips. That allows me to do that a little bit more. So holding your ankles, sit up nice and tall and put some tension against lifting the body first. And then start to tip from the pelvis. You're going to feel the tension in your deep inner groin right away. And then see where you want to go. I'm going to leave my hands right here where my elbows and my forearms are resting on my inner groins. But you might take your arms out to the side or out in front or put them on blocks. And we find our way into stillness with this one. Contemplating this week of the solstice as we move more and more towards the shorter day and the longer night. And I'm reminded that no matter how much darkness there is, there's always light. Always light. And where there's a crack of light anywhere, there's possibility, growth, expansion, beauty. We just have to be able to see it. I'm also reminded of how our cells, the trillions of cells that we have in our body, each and every one of them has what we call the divine light within it. And if we think about our physical body as we are in this human form, as a macrocosm to the microcosm of the internal body, and how we have all these trillions of cells and lights in these trillions of cells, we have our own internal light. Kind of keeps the light on, if you think about it that way. It keeps everything humming and alive, basically. And then if you think about your physical body being a microcosm to the world as a macrocosm, we are all our own being of light in the world. And so don't ever think that what you do and who you are doesn't matter. We all matter. Breathing into that deeper connection of who you are as a human, all your trillions of cells of light, and creating that deeper connection. One more breath here. And then slowly walking yourself back to an upright seated position. You can take a moment again to hold your ankles or legs and lean back or lift up, opening the throat, opening the front body. And then come back to center and bring your legs in, stretch your legs out. All right. So from here, we're going to lie down on a bolster. So what I'd like you to do is we're going to go upside down. Okay, so we're going to open up the chest. I'm going to use my bolster just to show you, but you can use a blanket that looks like this, and it's going to go lengthwise. And you can, if you like, especially if your back is tight, put something under for your head, okay? So we just spent some time going forward. Now we're going to spend some time going backward. You can take this all the way to your lower back, especially if it's low, and then let your head come back to the end of the blanket or the bolster. What I like to do here is pick up my pelvis, tip it under, and then put it back down so I have some freedom. If your bolster's high, it might need to be a little bit away from your lower back, but if it's lower, it'll feel better by your lower back. And then taking your arms away from your body somewhere. They can be low, they can be high. You could even take your arms up over your head if that feels good to you. Knees can stay bent, or you can put your legs all the way down. Again, tension against tissues on purpose. Positive pressure. So for me, it feels a little bit more beneficial if my arms are away from my body so that I can feel some of this tightness around my chest and armpits. You might feel it more somewhere else and need to make a different decision. Once you find your space, that edge of tension, then soften into stillness. This is a great shape to practice that Shavasana in the mouth. And when you begin to think about, I'm teaching you, so I'm talking. So my tongue tends to go to the roof of my mouth when I stop talking. And that's a connection to my brain. If you take your tongue and let it rest in the bottom of the mouth palate, behind your bottom teeth, you stop that connection to the brain. It just stops that activity, and then you can soften into the stillness. You might even notice that your jaw releases when you do that. Your eyes feel softer or quieter. And that you have a general sense of ease, sukha. Even though this particular shape is a little bit easier to manage because you're resting on something, continue to try to put the positive pressure against the tissues. And as your body softens into the shape, I always think of like soft, pliable clay. You know, if you laid it over something and it was super warm, it would just kind of wrap around the shape that you put it on. And as you do that, as your body releases over that bolster, you might notice, excuse me, you might notice different tensions or different pressure points that are happening. And take a nice deep breath. And then slowly, if your legs are straight, bend them. Bring your arms down. And then I want you to roll off to the side to come up. So the next shape that we're going to work with is the same kind of back bending idea, but this one's going to be a little bit more active. I want you to come to your belly and lay down and come into Sphinx pose. So Sphinx, I'm going to move first, and then we're going to hold some stillness. And so elbows underneath, shoulders, hands on the floor, feet can be a little bit wider apart. As you inhale, just bring your eyes a little bit forward on your mat. Think about elongation. And then as you exhale, turn your chin to the left, as if you're going to touch your chin to your left shoulder, and you'll turn a little bit in your upper body. And then as you inhale, come to center, think of elongating. Exhale, chin to the right shoulder, letting your upper body turn a little. And so keep going like a satya or somatic movement, nice and slow. Turning, turning, turning. And I'm giving you this direction with the chin to the shoulder so that you keep moving your head, because most of us don't really touch our shoulder. Let your shoulders and your chest move. So it's not just the head. The head is directing the movement, but the shoulders are turning a little bit too. Inhaling, come to center, and exhaling, turning. And taking it all the way to the edge, wherever you can't go anymore. It doesn't have to be aggressive. I just want you to feel that tension. Inhaling, this is our last side. And then find your way in middle. Now you may want to take your block and put your head on your block in between here while we're resting in Sphinx pose. Bring the block up high enough so your head isn't completely hanging free. Softening your shoulders in between, or softening your upper back in between your shoulders. You don't have to use the block. You can let your head relax. You can hold it in a neutral position. Let your belly feel heavy. Let your hips feel heavy. Noticing the density of the body, the bones, the muscles. And then noticing the freedom or the ease of the breath and the expansion. Again, I'm thinking today about this light. Can you bring your awareness to your heart center? Breathe in and out at the heart center. And imagine that the heart is sort of an orb of light. And as you inhale, that orb of light pulses bigger, glows bigger. And as you exhale, it just softens back into its size. Inhaling front, back, and sides, expanding in all directions. And exhaling, coming back into the body. So you can take this as big as you like. You can take it within your own body, this pulse of light, or you can take it out of your body, this pulse of light. You could take it in the whole room. If you've ever heard of the Heart Math Institute, it's a very famous institute that studies energetic resonance of the brain and the heart primarily. That's why it's called the Heart Math Institute. And they have been able to show and prove that the heart energy, I forget what the number is, but it's much bigger than our mind energy. Our mind energy is actually quite small in comparison. And we know that this heart energy has the ability to heal, has the ability for deep connection, has the ability to hold this light. And so whenever I think about these types of things, I always go to the heart center. Because the mind, you'd like to think it's really in control, but it's not. It totally is not. Take one more breath here. And then let yourself come down, resting forehead on your hands. Pause as if you're in neutral. Pause as if you're in Shavasana. Alrighty. Turning over, lying on your back. And again, you can be in a Shavasana-like position. Letting your arms be by your side and letting your legs relax down. Hopefully you're starting to notice your body shifting a little, shape shifting. So take your feet over to the left side of your mat. Leave your pelvis in place. Wiggle your head and shoulders over to the left side of your mat. And if you like, hold your right wrist and bring your arms up over your head. Now, if you like to do that, but the floor is too far away, put a bolster blanket over your head and let your arms rest on that. I always like to remind people to double check their right hip because we'll tend to go too far and that hip will come up away from the floor. And then turn your head to the right and then turn your head to the left and notice which way gives you the most tension and then stay there. And we're breathing into the sensations of the side body now. Feeling and sensing into expanding through the right lung. We get pretty bound up around our rib cage, our diaphragm. I talked about that a week or so ago. And when the diaphragm gets sticky, it doesn't work very well, we don't breathe very well. And when that starts to happen, our intercostals and connective tissue around the rib cage, and of course the lungs and the heart get sticky. And it just is a compounding problem, one on top of another. And so while we're here thinking about the right side of the diaphragm, the right lung, you might notice there's a bigger expansion going on there, on this side, because we just made room for it. And just breathing and noticing. Can you notice and feel the subtle sensations? Maybe around your hip or your lower belly. Remember, the diaphragm and the psoas are very closely related. They're buddies, if you would say. And although the diaphragm is one solid muscle that goes all the way across the whole torso, the tendon of the diaphragm meets where the psoas meets. So if your diaphragm's tight, your psoas is going to be tight. Why do you care about that? Because it's affecting your lower back and your leg mobility. So if you're feeling this particular shape in your lower back on the right side, that could be what's going on. Take a nice deep breath. And then letting your arms come down. If you took them above your head, bring yourself back into the middle. Bring your feet back into the middle. And in between sides, you might need to bend your knees and rock your pelvis, or bring your knees to your chest. For me, that's a vulnerable shape, and I always feel a little bit tight when I come out of it. More so than a lot of other shapes. And then as you feel ready, put your legs down, we'll do the other side. So feet go over to the right side of your mat. Head goes to the right side of your mat with your shoulders. Maybe arms come up, holding left wrist or left forearms. Remember to turn your head and find the tension. We go looking for it on purpose. We want to see how much tension we can create, and it still be a positive pressure. Never a negative pressure, never a pain. Check in with your teeth and your tongue. Softening jaw. Softening the activity of the mind. And take a nice deep breath. Again, if your arms are above your head, please bring them down. Wiggle your head and shoulders back. Bring your feet back. And then this time, go ahead and bend your knees. You can rock your pelvis a little bit. posterior tilt, pushing lower back to the floor, anterior tilt, moving the back away from the floor, just allowing a very gentle action to massage the body. And as you feel ready, you can go ahead and bring your knees up towards your chest or shoulders. So I like feet together and knees slightly open, but you could bring your knees closed too. Either way, think of upside down shavasana, upside down child's pose. So knees are a little bit apart or knees together. And you're holding with your hands. So find the place where you're not overly working the arms. You can hold over the top of the shin. You can hold underneath the knees and hold your fingers or your hands. And just allowing your arms to relax as much as you can. Go back to the jaw one last time, the tongue relaxing away from the roof of the mouth. And notice when you do that, how your eyes feel like they're a little bit softer. The mandible, the jawbone, and the jaw joint softens. And if you're like me, I tend to like let my one foot rest on top of the other one, but I always do it the same way. So I just flipped my feet on the other side and I had a whole almost energetic release of my body. So you might play with these things that you do habitually, and then you try something a little different. You go, oh, look how that changes things. Let your head feel heavy. Feel the weight of your body against the mat and against the floor. And take a nice deep breath. And allowing the legs to come back to the floor. We're going to move to Shavasana from here. So letting the legs come down. Maybe put a bolster or blocks under your legs. I really like to lay in neutral because that's how my body can relax, but it's really unique and individual. Cover yourself up, especially now because it's winter. If you have an eye pillow for your eyes, go ahead and use it. It's nice to cover up the light from your eyes while you're resting. And as you feel like you've stopped moving and you're settled, take a breath and let the exhale soften you into stillness.
Take a nice deep breath. And slowly, carefully starting to stretch and move, bringing yourself back. And as you feel ready, you can bend your knees and gently roll to a side and pause there for a moment. Slowly and gently making your way up to a seated position when you feel ready. Once you're seated, allow the hands to come to the heart center, contemplating a little bit of that heart energy between your hands. As always, in gratitude for our time together on the mat, our deep body wisdom and guiding light. May our light always shine brightly, and may we always see the light in each other. Namaste.